The beads you need today are in your group C, so 11C, HC and SDC. So that's 2 different size 11 seed beads, or it might all be one colour, and your super duos. The first thing you're going to do is get your thread ready, and you want about 150 centimetres or 60 inches of thread, and we're going to leave a long tail. You want to leave about 50 centimetres or 20 inches. And what we're going to do to start, we're going to add a stop bead. This is just going to stop beads falling off at the start of your thread until we need to go back and finish the start. So I'm going to pick up a bead, doesn't matter what one, but I'm going to use this, my 11C, because it'll be less confusing for me as I continue. And like I say, I want to leave a good 50 centimetres, 20 inches of tail. And then to add the stop bead, I'm going to circle through that bead again. And as I do that, I'm making sure I don't split the thread. I'm just going through it again. So it's just held on there loosely. It will easily slide off when I want it to, but it's just going to stop everything falling off. So that's my thread ready, and now I'm ready to bead. What I need to do to get started, and it's going to feel unusual at first, don't worry, it will all sort itself out as you carry on. We're going to pick up 2 super duos, a highlight, 2 super duos and 5 highlights. Slide those down to the stop bead. Now what I'm going to do is reverse direction, and I want to go into the empty hole, so the one I haven't been in yet, of the 3rd super duo I picked up. So not the last one I added, the one before it, there's the 3rd one. So I'm going to reverse direction and go back through there. And don't worry about it, there's still lots of beading to happen, lots of tightening to happen, so it will all change as you go along. Now I'm going to pick up a super duo, a highlight and a super duo, and I want to go into the empty hole that I haven't gone into of the 2nd super duo that I added. And I'm kind of splitting a pair here. That's what I'm going to be doing a lot of. So into there. So I add a super duo, a highlight and a super duo between 2 super duos. Then I'm going to pick up 5 highlights. And I'm going to change direction, and I'm going to go back into the 2nd or empty hole of the 2nd super duo I just picked up and added in there. So reverse direction and go through that. Now again, don't worry about getting it too tight because we've got lots of beading to do, but try and tighten it up if you can. Now we're going to do that again. So we're going to pick up a super duo, a highlight and a super duo. And I'm splitting the pair, so I've got that space. I'm going into the 2nd or empty hole of the 1st one I picked up a minute ago. So I picked up these 2, so I'm going into there. Get those to sit nicely. And then I'm going to pick up 5 highlights. Reverse direction and go into the 2nd or empty hole of the 2nd one I just added. Now I'm going to do that 13 more times. So I'm going to do it until I've used all my super duos. So super duo, highlight, super duo, split the pair, so into the empty hole right there. 5 highlights and change direction. And go into the empty hole of the 2nd super duo I just added. There we go there. And again, you know, it's a bit loose further back. I'm not too worried. There's lots going to happen to it. But super duo, highlight, super duo, split the pair, 5 highlights and reverse direction into the 2nd or empty hole there. And I'm going to keep doing this until they're all gone. So it'll be 16 pairs I'll add in total. So if you didn't count out your 32 super duos, then Make sure you keep an eye on that you just add 16 of them. You see it's just growing longer and longer. Again, it'll be a bit loose further back, don't worry. I just don't want it too loose that I lose the shape of what I'm making, or I can't easily see what I'm looking at. We're going to be threading through it all a lot more, but if it got too loose that I couldn't see what bead was where, or it made the beads not lie correctly, something like that, then I would need to worry about getting it tighter, but otherwise not too much. Okay, my pile of super duos is starting to go down. Okay, I think I've just got 3 more repeats to do. Okay, this is my last pair of super duos. And now my last loop of 5 highlights. So I should have 16 pairs of super duos. Obviously the start needs still to be dealt with. Oh no, I only picked up 3 in the loop. I'm going to undo that, fix it, and then show you how it looks. Okay, back on track, all corrected. I've got 5 in each loop. I've got my 16 pairs. Next up, we're going to turn this into a ring. So I'm going to seal it by, imagine I'm picking those 2 super duos up. So I've got to thread into one, pick up the highlight bead, and then go into the other one. So make sure you go in them the direction you need to. Make sure you don't get this all twisted. So just keep an eye on it. Now your stop bead's still going to be there. You can loosen it a bit if you need to, just to get it out your way, but we don't want to accidentally lose that super duo, so I'm making sure I don't take it off just yet. So what I'm going to do is fold this around into a ring. Again, make sure it's not twisted. Fold it around into a ring. I'm going to tighten that up again. That's what works for me, but see what works for you. And have a look and think about where you're going to place those super duos. And obviously there's only the right holes to go through. I'm just going to go through the empty holes, but don't accidentally go over to the wrong bead first or anything like that. But I'm now going to go into the empty hole of the super duo that's on the side where I am. And get that laying the way I want it. Then I'm going to pick up a highlight and go into the empty hole of the other super duo. And now I'm going to go into the empty hole of the super duo at the end I was working at. So again, just thinking that I'm splitting the pair here with the pair of beads there. So when I pull it tight, it should, obviously it's a bit looser, But it should start to look like the rest of it. You know, they should be sitting how all the others are sitting. I'm going to tighten that just so you can see it again. So you can see all my super duos are in there now, nice how they should be. But I need to add a loop of 5 highlights, and where I'm going to add them is where my tail's coming out of. And so if I look at my work, I can see, you know, each pair of super duos is split with it's shared with like a loop of 5. So I've got to pick up my 5 highlights, go into where my tail is, so the hole there. So this hole is the only super duo hole that doesn't have a loop of 5 coming out of it. And what I'm going to aim to do is I'm going to go through 4 super duos in total. So I'm going into the one, then the pair that split, you know, the pair that this is part of, and then it's the other one that this one's part of a pair of. So through 4 in total is what I'm saying. If I tighten that again, just so I don't lose anything or lose where I am, but it's up to you how tight or loose you have that stop bead. So I'm going into where the tail is coming from, and I'm trying to basically get over to the other edge of my work. Now I'm not going to jump and just thread across, I'm going where there's already a thread. So I'm going through the 2 super duo holes that are in the middle, and then the super duo hole that's on the edge. And of course I have to go through the highlight that's in the middle there as well. So I'm coming through, so I'm following the thread path I've already gone through into that super duo. So now it's all joined into a ring. Now again, don't worry too much about how tight or loose it is, there's lots got to happen still. But just double check, make sure it's all how you expect it to be. Next up is we're going to start to link these loops of 5. And as you're doing this, you'll be beading on one edge, going through your work, beading on the other edge, going through your work, you know, back and forth the whole time, just adding single beads. So the first thing I have to do, the edge I'm on, I have to thread up through 2 of the highlights that are in the loop right where I am. So up through 2 there. So I'm coming out the second in a little loop of 5 there. Then I'm going to pick up 1 highlight, and I'm going over to the next loop that's right where I am, and I'm going to go down through 2. So I'm threading into the body of my work, so it's the 2 on the edge here, going down through there, threading into the center of my work. So that just adds 1 highlight along the edge there, and I want to pull it tight. You can just see it's that one there. Now what I'm going to do is I've got to weave to come over on the other edge of my work. So I'm going to thread into the super duo, then the super duo, the highlight, the super duo, and then another super duo. So again, I'm following the thread path that's already there. It's like a little semicircle to come out on this loop here. So you'll always be threading through a little thread path you already did. So once I've gone through those 2 in the loop, I'm then going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 beads to get to the other edge. So 2 super duos, a highlight, 2 super duos. And then I've got to pop up through the first 2 highlights in that next loop of 5. Then I've got to pick up 1, and I'm going over to the next loop nearest where I am. So I'm going to turn my work this way, over the next loop where I am, and I'm going to go down the 2 there. So again, I'm threading back into the center of my work, and then what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through again so I come out the next space over here. So I go through 2 highlights, then 2 super duos and a highlight. And you might have to do this in a few maneuvers, don't worry if you can't get it in one thread path. Then 2 super duos, 1, then 2, and then up through the first 2 11s in that next loop of 5. And here we go again. It's an 11. I'm going to the next loop of 5, going through the 2, heading into the centre of my work, and then I'm going to go through the super duo, 11, super duo, first 2 seeds in the next loop of 5. And back again. So it's 1 highlight, down through 2 11s in the next loop, and then through 2 super duos, a highlight, 2 super duos, and then the first 2 highlights. Here we go again. So I'm just adding single highlights on each edge, but lots of weaving through, and this is where it really pulls it tight, and I'm going to talk you through tightening it more if you need to in a little bit. But I've got to work the whole way around my piece. Making sure that everywhere has single bead connecting these loops of 5. I've just gone through 1 there, so I need to make sure I go through the second. You will find as you bead this that you're constantly rotating it, because you know, when I work on one edge I want to hold it one way, and then as I move to the other edge I want to hold it a different way. So just keep going back and forth. And you can count out the beads. I mean, as I'm doing this, incredibly, I'm doing lots of weaving, but I'm only adding 16 highlights. If I look along here, I'm just checking I didn't miss anywhere. For some reason I just got worried I'd missed somewhere, but I don't think it's possible. But just where I keep turning it round, I was for some reason thought I might have skipped something. Here we go. Alright, I'm nearly back at the start. My stop bead is a little clue that I'm nearly back near the start, but again I'm going to really make sure I check and double check, because we need all these beads in there before we can carry on. Okay, that's the last one I can see that I'm going to add on this side. But I wonder if I've got one missing on the other edge. I could take that stop bead off now. Nothing's going to fall off now, so I'm going to move it out the way at least so I can just keep an eye on that edge. Yep, I've just got one more to add over here. So make sure you go all the way around. This is my last one, and then it's going to take me all the way back to be on the other edge of my work from my tail, which is what I want. And what I'm going to do when I get to the edge, I'm going to step up to come out of like the bead that's not part of the twos, it's sitting on the edge. So it's either like number 3 in a loop of 5, or it's one that was put in between. So I've gone all the way around. I've connected every loop with single beads, and I'm ready for the next step. The next thing I have to do is just a round of peyote stitch on each edge. But before I do that, I'm going to have a look at my work and see if anywhere needs tightening. Because it is a fiddly thing to bead, you might need to tighten it. You might think there's gaps, anything like that, or you might have missed. So that's why you've got extra thread on each side. You know, we need to give you plenty of thread. I found on some of mine, I did weave back and tighten it. You know, I found it hard to get those loops nicely, but on some of them when I beaded it, I haven't. So it's up to you. Have a look. The beading we have to do still is on each edge, so don't worry about filling the beads in between. But have a look. If you need to weave through, you know, again, don't jump anywhere. Just feel, you know, if I see, oh, this is a little bit loose maybe, go through and pull it nice and tight. I'm happy with mine, but you have the option there. That's what all those threads are there for. Once you're satisfied, then we're going to move on to the next bit. So the last thing is peyoteing on each side, one round of your 11 C beads. Again, I could do in highlights if I wanted to, but I'm going to go into these. And each round just uses 16 of them. Now I'm beading between, if you remember, we've got the little loops of 5. So I'm beading between bead number 3 or the single bead that I added joining the loops. There's 16 beads, 16 beads along each edge that have their holes going that way. So I've got to bead into them. And as I do this, I'm just going to be pulling tight. So I might bead this and then realise, oh, actually, there are little places I want to tighten up. You know, see what you think as you go along. Okay, so we're just going to be beading on the edges, so don't worry about filling the other beads up if you do need to weave through. So I'm just coming all the way around with peyote stitch. Okay, I'm nearly all the way around. I'm going to go in here and then I'm going to step up into the first one added. So that's that edge done. Now I need to go to the other edge. Now my tail thread's not going to be exactly in the right spot. So I'm going to make sure I remove my stop bead. I don't want to accidentally leave that in my work. I'm going to poke my thread through to the outside so I can see it. At the moment it's sort of hiding on the inside. Poke it through, and then again I now need to either, you know, weave around if I think it needs it, or step up onto that edge so I come from any of the beads where the holes go around the circle. So again, it would be bead number 3 in the loop of 5, or one of the beads that were added joining the loops. So I've got to step up into one of those, just making sure I don't accidentally trowel my thread over anywhere. And then I've got a peyote stitch all the way along this edge. And again, this just uses 16 of my beads. Nearly all the way around. There we go, and step up. And again, have a look at your work. Is there anywhere that needs tightening? Any of the loops have gone funny or anything like that? If not, then what you're going to do is leave your threads where they are and put this to one side until day 8.